Um, Imagine a room full of like hyper-rational, highly anxious Silicon Valley tech developers.
Right. People whose entire lives revolve around code and algorithms.
Exactly. Just optimization and this relentless race to build artificial intelligence. And now picture all of them sitting there quietly, just completely captivated, listening to a Hindu monk from the ancient Vedanta tradition.
It honestly sounds like the setup to a joke, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, what could a monk, draped in traditional robes, possibly teach a room full of cutting-edge AI engineers about intelligence?
Well, it's actually one of the most profound intersections of ancient philosophy and modern anxiety that you could ever encounter. Because, the stakes here go way beyond how we code neural networks.
Yeah, it gets deeply personal.
Right. It's about how we define our fundamental assumptions about who we actually are. If we don't understand our own minds, we basically have no hope of understanding what we're building.
Which is exactly what we are unpacking today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're getting into a truly fascinating talk given by Swami Sarvapriyananda at South Park Commons.
Right in the heart of the tech world.
Yeah. And our mission today is to explore this profound ancient framework known as Advaita Vedanta and use it to completely reframe how you understand the mind, the self, and what scientists call the hard problem of consciousness.
Especially right now, in the age of AI.
Exactly. It's this perfect bridge between ancient, rigorous philosophy and the very real, existential dread so many of us are feeling about technology.
But to even begin bridging that gap, we have to look at how we take our absolute most valuable asset entirely for granted.
We really do.
We do. We fundamentally misidentify our own minds, on a daily basis. The Swami starts with a parable that just perfectly illustrates this blind spot.
Oh, the parable of the Indian washerman, right? The dhobi.
Yeah.
I love this story because it is so incredibly vivid. So this washerman makes a meager living collecting dirty laundry from his village.
Just everyday, repetitive work.
Right. Backbreaking work. Every day, he takes these massive piles of dirty clothes down to the riverbed, and he scrubs them clean by beating them against the rocks in the water.
Which is how it was done for centuries.
Yeah, exactly. So one day, while he's working by the river, he finds this massive, heavy, raw diamond. But here's the critical detail. He has never seen a diamond in his life.
Right. He has absolutely no concept of what it actually is.
None. To him, it's just, a particularly pretty unusually heavy rock.
So what does he do with it?
He uses it to scrub the dirty laundry.
Of course he does.
Right. Day in and day out, for months, he's taking this priceless, flawless gem and just bashing it against wet clothes and river stones just to get the mud out of other people's shirts.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. But eventually, he gets a little curious about this heavy rock, so he takes it to his friend, a local vegetable seller.
Who also doesn't know what it is.
No idea. But he thinks, hey, it'd make a good weight for my scale. So he offers the washerman 10 rupees for it.
Which is basically nothing.
Not at all. So the washerman says no, hold on to it, and eventually he finds his way to a professional diamond merchant.
And that's where everything changes.
Yeah, the merchant takes one look at this rock through his luke and is absolutely floored. He looks at the washerman and says, this is the largest raw diamond I have ever seen. I'll give you 1,000,000 rupees for it right now.
And in a single instant, the washerman's poverty is just over. And the metaphor here is incredibly precise. It cuts right to the core of Vedanta philosophy.
Okay, let's unpack this. What exactly is the diamond?
The diamond is consciousness. And the dirty laundry represents our everyday experiences, seeing, hearing, thinking, worrying, planning.
So we are the washerman.
Exactly. We already have the diamond. We are using it constantly, every single second of the day, to process the world around us. We just don't realize its profound depth.
When you put it like that, it hits so close to home. Think about how we use this absolute miracle of human awareness, the very fact that you can experience anything at all, to just passively scroll through endless emails.
Oh, yeah. Or stress out about a typo in a text message.
Right. Or get furious at someone cutting you off in traffic.
Yeah.
We are using the diamond to scrub the most mundane, dirty laundry without ever pausing to look at the diamond itself.
That's the tragic irony of the human condition right there.
Right.
What's fascinating here is that Advaita Vedanta doesn't actually give you something new.
It's just the diamond merchant.
Right. It acts as the merchant. It simply introduces you to what you already possess. Consciousness isn't some theory you have to go to a library to learn. It is purely experiential.
Because there is no experience without it.
Exactly. The monk points out this beautiful truth. This philosophy removes what was never really there, our ignorance, and gives you what you already had all along.
Okay, but if we're already using this diamond blindly, how do we even begin to separate the diamond from the dirty laundry? I mean, the word consciousness gets thrown around so much in science and philosophy, it almost loses its meaning.
It really does become a buzzword.
Yeah, so how do we isolate it?
Well, if you are speaking to a room full of engineers, you need a formula. And the Swami provides this remarkably elegant equation. Consciousness plus object equals experience.
C plus O equals E.
C plus O equals E. If you want to understand absolutely anything that happens to you in your life, you can break it down into those two fundamental components.
The consciousness that is observing and the object that is being observed.
Yes. But let's clearly define object here, because in normal conversation, an object is like a coffee mug or a table or a car.
Right, physical stuff.
But in this framework, the definition is much broader. An object is literally anything that can be experienced.
Yeah.
So a table is a physical object. Your physical body is an object because you can see your hands, you can feel your heartbeat, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But here is the radical shift that changes everything. The mind is also an object.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I struggle with that concept. My instinct is to say that my mind is me.
Of course, that's how we're all conditioned.
Right? Like my thoughts, my memories, my personality, that feels like the core of my identity. So wait, when I feel a sudden flash of physical pain, or when I suddenly remember the smell of my mom's kitchen when I was a kid, you're saying that isn't me experiencing it.
Well,
How is a memory an object like a coffee mug?
I know, it is a massive paradigm shift when you first grasp it. Let's break it down. The Swami calls thoughts, emotions, memories, and even the human ego subtle objects.
Subtle objects, okay.
Why? Because you experience them. If you can observe a coffee mug, you are not the coffee mug. Similarly, if you can say, I feel sad, or I remember that smell, or I am having an anxious thought.
Then I'm observing the sadness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sadness, the memory, the anxiety are objects being presented to your awareness. They are passing across the screen of your awareness.
Wow.
The watcher cannot be the thing being watched, therefore the mind is not the core you.
Okay, my mind is blown a little bit. If my entire collection of thoughts and feelings is just a parade of subtle objects, what is the consciousness part of the equation?
Consciousness is what the Swami refers to as the light of lights.
The light of lights.
Yeah, think about it in layers of illumination. The sun is a physical light that reveals the physical world to your eyes. Language is a kind of conceptual light that reveals ideas.
Right.
The mind is a subtle light that reveals sensory info and emotions. But consciousness is the ultimate, unchanging, continuous witness that illuminates the mind itself.
It's the steady light shining on the stage of my experience.
Exactly, and it never turns off.
That's wild. Actually, the Swami made a point about deep sleep that completely reframed how I think about rest.
I know, the deep sleep analogy is brilliant.
Yeah, he said that even in dreamless deep sleep or like under general anesthesia, consciousness is still there. It hasn't powered down.
It's just illuminating an empty room.
Right, because there are no objects, no thoughts, no dreams, no sensations being presented to it. It experiences an absence of objects. But that is very different from an absence of experience.
That is such a vital distinction. You still exist when you are in deep sleep. Your light of lights is just shining on a blank wall.
Wow.
And the implications of this equation are massive, particularly when we talk about human suffering and trauma. Because if we accept that consciousness plus object equals experience.
C plus O equals E?
Right. Then we realize that trauma happens to the object.
Okay, wait, walk me through that. How does that work?
Well, trauma happens to the physical body, which is an object, or it happens to the subtle object of the mind. The mind can be deeply wounded by a horrific experience.
It carries scars, triggers.
Yes, it becomes fragile, but the consciousness itself, the light of lights, is entirely untouched. It just illuminates the trauma. The light shining on a broken vase is not itself broken.
Yeah.
Your core awareness cannot be damaged, degraded, or fundamentally altered by the experiences it witnesses.
That is incredibly liberating. Just the idea that no matter what kind of brutal, dirty laundry I've had to scrub in my life, the diamond itself is completely unblemished.
Untouched.
But this brings us to the AI elephant in the room.
Ah, yes, the reason he was talking to Silicon Valley.
Right. If our minds, our ability to process info, use logic, retrieve memories, solve complex problems, if all of that is just a collection of subtle objects, then what exactly are tech developers building when they create artificial intelligence?
This raises an important question, and it's exactly why a Hindu monk was invited to speak to the brightest minds in tech. To understand what AI is doing, we first need a working definition of intelligence.
Right, from the computer science perspective.
Exactly. The host at South Park Commons defined intelligence as representation and problem solving. Essentially, you have an agent that perceives reality, represents that reality internally, and then takes steps to change it.
Taking an input, processing it through logic, and creating an output.
Yes.
Like a Waymo self-driving taxi navigating through San Francisco,
Right.
or an LLM writing a legal brief based on a prompt.
Exactly that. And the Swami points out something that completely reorients the entire AI debate. He says AI is successfully replicating the mind.
Because it can do logic and language.
Right. It is doing an incredible job of replicating language generation, memory retrieval, problem solving, and it can do all of that because the mind, as we just established, is a subtle object.
And objects can be built.
Through coding and silicon, humanity has learned how to manufacture synthetic, subtle objects. But what AI completely and utterly fails to replicate is consciousness.
That first-person, subjective, internal feeling of, I am experiencing this.
Exactly.
But I have to push back on that because, well, I know exactly what the tech enthusiasts would say. There's that famous quote from the physicist Richard Feynman.
What I cannot build, I do not understand.
Yes. A lot of people in the tech world look at the human brain and say, well, the brain generates the mind. It's just a meat computing. So if we build a complex enough neural network and we keep stacking billions of parameters on top of each other, how are we so sure my Waymo isn't conscious on some basic level?
The idea that scale creates consciousness.
Right. Doesn't complex physical processing eventually just spark into subjective experience?
Yeah. That is the exact hurdle that mainstream science is currently tripping over. And it's known in philosophy as the hard problem of consciousness.
The hard problem.
Right. Mainstream science overwhelmingly assumes that objective physical brain states generate subjective experiences. But trying to get a subjective first-person experience out of an objective physical process, like microscopic electrical activity bouncing around in neurons,
It's a category error.
it is a fundamental category error.
It's like trying to arrange enough microscopic Lego blocks in the perfect pattern until the Lego blocks suddenly feel sad.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
It doesn't matter how complex the structure is, it's the completely wrong category of material.
Exactly. Philosophers call this the explanatory gap. Let's say you eat a strawberry. A neuroscientist can map out every single electrical impulse in your brain that happens when you bite into that fruit.
You can track the synapses firing.
Right. They could even build a supercomputer that perfectly mimics those exact electrical impulses. But nowhere in that objective data can they locate the subjective taste of sweetness.
They can't find the experience.
They cannot explain how physical voltage translates into the internal feeling of enjoying a strawberry. The Swami pointed out a staggering fact during his talk. There are currently over 325 different theories of consciousness circulating in modern science.
Which is really just academia's way of saying we have absolutely no idea how this works.
Precisely. If you have 325 different theories for how gravity works, it means you don't understand gravity.
Right.
So AI's failure to possess a first-person experience actually proves the ancient Vedanta theory. It proves that the mind and consciousness are two entirely different things.
Because you can build synthetic versions of the mind.
Yes, because the mind is an object and objects can be manufactured. But you cannot manufacture the light of lights because consciousness is not an object. It is the fundamental experiential ground of reality itself.
I mean, this is a massive philosophical paradigm shift.
Yep.
But I want to bring it out of the clouds and into our daily lives for a minute.
Let's do it.
Because we are living in an era of intense, pervasive anxiety about AI. People are genuinely terrified about losing their jobs, losing their purpose, losing their sense of human uniqueness.
It's a very real fear.
Yeah. If an AI can do all the thinking and creating better and faster than we can, what is left for us? If we are not our easily replicable minds, how does knowing this ancient philosophy actually help you calm that very modern fear?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the psychological root of fear itself. According to Vedanta, fear always stems from duality.
Duality, meaning me versus the world.
Exactly. It comes from the concept of the other. The French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously captured this when he wrote, "Hell is other people."
Oh, yeah.
When we believe that we are nothing more than limited, vulnerable bodies and minds locked inside our physical skin, we are naturally terrified of everything outside of us.
The universe feels hostile.
Right. We feel small and fragile, and we view machines that might replace us as an existential threat.
Because if I firmly believe that I am just my mind, and a machine suddenly comes along with a better, faster mind, then I am fundamentally obsolete. My identity is erased.
But the non-dual solution of Advaita Vedanta shatters that fear. It is summarized in a famous Sanskrit phrase, Atman is Brahman.
Okay, Atman is Brahman. That's a heavy philosophical phrase. Break that down for me. What does that actually mean for the person listening to this right now?
It means that your individual core consciousness, the Atman, is the exact same stuff as the ultimate fundamental reality of the universe, Brahman.
Okay.
Think of it like the ocean and a wave. When you identify with your mind and body, you think you are a tiny, fragile wave terrified of crashing against the shore or being overtaken by a bigger wave like AI.
Right.
But Atman is Brahman means you are not the wave. You are the water. You are the ocean itself. You are not a tiny spark of consciousness floating inside a massive material universe. The entire universe, including the AI, the physical world, the stars, appears within your consciousness.
So what does this all mean practically? Like, how do you find the eye of the storm when the world around you feels so chaotic and threatening?
Well, the Swami didn't just leave the engineers with abstract poetry.
Right, he gave them actual tools.
He laid out 4 highly practical applications to deal with this, which act as direct antidotes to modern burnout. The first is inquiry.
Applying the equation.
Exactly. Rigorously applying C plus O equals E. It means constantly asking the question, who am I? When you feel a wave of anxiety about your job security, you don't say, I am anxious. You pause and ask, am I this anxiety? Or am I the consciousness observing this subtle object of anxiety?
It creates distance. It puts space between you and the panic.
Yes. It rewires your psychological response by disidentifying from the painful object. The second practice is focus, or meditation.
Training your attention.
Right. And the Swami made a pointed observation about Silicon Valley here. The entire tech industry is essentially a multi-trillion-dollar machine designed to scatter your attention across 1,000 subtle objects.
Notifications, feeds, infinite scrolls.
They profit from your distraction. But for your own soul, your own mental integrity, focus is what actually pays out. Training your mind to rest on the observer rather than being violently yanked around by every object that floats by.
Which leads directly into the third practice, right?
Yeah.
Altruism or selflessness.
Yes, relaxing the ego.
Because when you finally understand that your personality, your ego, your career title, when you realize all of that is just a subtle object you wear to interact with the world, you can finally relax your death grip on it.
And that death grip on the ego is exhausting.
It really is. It's like we are wearing a Halloween mask, and we've worn it so tightly for so many years that we actually forget our real face beneath it.
We think the mask is us.
Yeah. So we spend all our time and energy defending the mask, trying to make the mask look richer or smarter, and getting deeply offended when people insult the mask. Altruism, acting for the benefit of others without any personal gain, is how we practice loosening that mask.
It is a literal cure for modern burnout.
Because you stop exhausting yourself, trying to protect an ego that isn't even the real you.
That is a perfect analogy. Fearlessness and selflessness always go hand in hand. The more you defend the mask, the more terrified you are of it being damaged. The more you let it go through genuine service to others, the more fearless you become.
Wow.
And that brings us to the fourth practice, faith or devotion. This isn't just about blind dogma, it's about cultivating profound emotional resilience through belief.
It grounds you.
The Swami even cited data from the American Psychiatric Association showing that people with genuine spiritual faith, regardless of their specific religion, are far more resilient to mental illness. And when they do face psychological crises, they recover much faster.
Because faith provides a secure anchor outside of the turbulent mind. If you know there is a light of lights, you don't panic as much when the room gets dark.
Exactly.
So pulling all this together, we went incredibly deep today. But the core takeaway is beautifully simple. Think back to that equation. Consciousness plus object equals experience.
C plus O equals E.
You are the diamond. You are the light of lights. You are the continuous, unchanging observer. Your physical body, your passing thoughts, your deeply held opinions, your anxieties about the future, those are all just objects playing out on the stage of your awareness.
And while artificial intelligence might get remarkably good at replicating the subtle objects of the mind, processing vast amounts of logic, generating beautiful language, solving complex equations, it can never replicate the observer.
It cannot manufacture the light.
Your core self is untouchable, undamageable, and entirely unique.
Which leaves you with this final thought. The next time you feel completely overwhelmed by a heavy mood or a spiraling anxious thought about your job or fear about the future, pause for just a second. Ask yourself, who is the you that is actually watching that thought go by? And if you are simply the one watching it, do you have to claim that thought as your own? Or can you just let it pass quietly through the light?